Some wounds are invincible, and some masks are prisons. Rosa Ushiromiya is a broken woman cloaked in darkness, her true self swallowed beneath countless masks. These masks do more than just hide, they imprison, a storm of madness, rage, and despair that churns relentlessly beneath her surface. To see Rosa is to face the terrifying fracture of a soul shattered by trauma, isolation, and bitter secrets. Her life is a twisting maze of deception where even those closest to her glimpse only fragments of the truth. The family she belongs to is riddled with cruelty and secrets so heavy they fracture bonds and twist realities. Rosa's identity is no different, fractured, fragmented, and hidden behind the layers crafted to protect what little remains of her broken heart. Leonardo da Vinci once said, "The greatest deception men suffer from is from their own opinions." Rosa's life is a labyrinth of self-deception and fractured identity, a world where the truth is buried beneath layers of denial and painful illusions. Behind every mask lies a shadow, a hidden torment waiting to be understood. When you spend your life behind a mask, you lose the ability to recognize yourself in the mirror. What does it mean to wear so many faces that you no longer recognize your own? How do you survive when the person staring back at you is a stranger? When madness threatens to consume what little sanity remains? Rosa's story is one of despair and fractured humanity, a tale that demands we look beyond appearances into dark places where broken souls dwell. Join me as we unravel the many faces Rosa wears, to confront the woman trapped in darkness and the crushing weight of her shattered existence. To understand this fractured soul, we must first step into the shadows of her origins, where trauma and tragedy first took root. Rosa occupies a paradoxical space within her family in the story's web of tragedy. On the surface, she shows the image of a kind, no-nonsense matriarchal figure, a woman who carries the burden of responsibility with determination. Yet beneath this exterior lies a fractured soul tormented by isolation, despair, and the weight of life hiding her true self. To those around her, Rosa's image can be seen as kind and understanding. Later on, she drops this facade. Her words become sharp. A cold demeanor erects walls that few dare to breach. But behind this facade is a woman fractured by years of trauma and loss, who has long since abandoned any hope of genuine connection. The mask she wears is both armor and prison, a necessary shield against a world that has shown her nothing but cruelty. Her complex character emerges not by stripping away these masks, but by understanding the desperate need behind them. Each mask is a defense against pain, a fragile barrier to protect the remnants of her fragile heart. The mask conceals a woman who is much a victim of her own illusions as she is of her family's cruelty. Rosa's story forces us to confront the brutal reality that sometimes the greatest prison is not a physical cage, but the shattered identity born from endless deception, both self-inflicted and imposed. The tragedy of Rosa is not simply what she hides, but the slow erasure of what she once was beneath the mask she can no longer remove. Rosa's life is not lived as a singular self, but as a kaleidoscope of fractured personas, each mask a desperate attempt to survive the unbearable. The masks are not mere disguises, but prisons that distort her reality and fracture her identity further, hiding an abyss of madness beneath. Mask of deception. At first, Rose presents a calm, almost cold face, a mask crafted with painstaking care to conceal the chaos rolling inside. To her family, especially her siblings, this mask is a silent challenge, a deflection that prevents them from seeing the storms of rage and despair that threaten to unravel. It's a defense mechanism born from years of underestimation or neglect, a way to appear controlled even when her mind teeters on the brink. Mask of the businesswoman. This mask is Rosa's armor of pride and forced professionalism. It is a carefully constructed image she wears around family gatherings and conversations, a calculated performance to maintain the illusion of control. Beneath this polished exterior is desperation claws at her resolve. She clings to this persona because losing it would mean losing the last semblance of power she possesses. It's an act of survival, yet a symbol of her deep-seated fear of collapse. Mask of the normal mother. In Maria's present, Rosa feigns the nurturing role society expects, a mother providing superficial care. But this mask is brittle, a fragile veil over a gulf of emotional distance. Her difficulty in connecting with Maria reveals the chasm of trauma and pain she cannot bridge. This mask hides the truth that Rosa's love is burdened by resentment, exhaustion, and isolation. Mask of rationality. Logic becomes Rosa's refuge from the unbearable truths, especially in confrontations with Battler and the others. She clings to cold reason as a shield against emotional vulnerability. Yet this rationality is a double-edged sword. It distances her from genuine connections and traps her in denial, a way to avoid confronting the raw, painful emotions beneath. Mask of victim turned punisher. Years of neglect and emotional abandonment hardened Rosa's heart, transforming her pain into harshness and cruelty. Most painfully towards Maria, this mask reveals a woman who, battered by life's merciless blows, lashes out in a desperate bid to assert control. Her punishment is both an expression of suffering and a twisted form of love, a tragic cycle of pain handed down. Mask of denial and projection. Rosa projects blame outward, refusing to look inward where self-reflection would unleash unbearable truths. This mask is wielded broadly toward family members and Battler alike, a barrier that prevents reconciliation and keeps her trapped in a loop of anger and isolation. It's easier to blame others than face the emptiness inside. Mask of fragility and hopelessness. Beneath the armor of rage and control lies a fragile psyche, barely held together by sheer will. This mask is private, almost invisible to others, revealing a woman who feels utterly hopeless, one whose soul is quietly unraveling in silence away from prying eyes. Mask of resentment. Rosa harbors a deep, festering resentment towards her siblings who enjoy the warmth of loving families, a warmth denied to her, abandoned by her husband and forced into solitude. This mask conceals envy and pain, intensifying her isolation. It fuels the bitter distance she maintains, a silent wall erected to guard against further betrayal. This mask is directed towards Battler in a more personal way. Battler represents something that Rosa could never have: autonomy. Even though Battler is her young nephew, he portrays a level of self-confidence that Rosa lacked as a child. Battler rebelled and distanced himself from the Ushiromiya family for an extended period. Rosa was forced to stay within the stranglehold of her family for her entire life. Rosa was always alone while Battler was able to surround himself with people. Battler represents something that Rosa never had: control of her life. She was forced to live in a world that was truly never her own, which fuels her resentment towards Battler, someone who was free while she was trapped in a cage. Mask of chaos. Emotional volatility erupts in heated exchanges with siblings and Battler, revealing the fractured mind beneath. This mask is raw, terrifying glimpse into the madness threatening to consume her, a chaos that fractures reality and shatters relationships. Mask of silence. In moments of unbearable pain and confrontation, Rosa suppresses her suffering beneath a mask of silence. It is a barrier, a retreat into isolation where emotions fester unchecked. The silence is deafening, a signal of how deeply broken she truly is. Mask of martyrdom. Rosa embraces suffering as a twisted justification for bitterness and manipulation. She becomes the martyr in her own tragic story, wielding her pain to elicit sympathy and control those around her. This mask reflects a woman trapped in a cycle of self-pity and resentment, unable to break free. Mask of control. Desperation drives Rosa to manipulate others, especially her siblings, and Maria. This mask is the facade of power, yet it hides the truth that her control is fragile and fleeting, an illusion masking profound happiness. Mask of shame. Guilt and self-loathing gnaw at Rosa's soul, fueling self-destructive tendencies hidden deep beneath other masks. This mask is private, rarely acknowledged even by Rosa herself, but is a constant undercurrent in her fractured identity. Mask of rage. Her explosive anger erupts as both a weapon and as a shield, frequently directed at Battler and Ava. This mask is a desperate outcry, a way to externalize the crushing despair inside. It is volatile and dangerous, but beneath the fury lies a wounded soul crying for recognition and release. Mask of incompetence. Rosa adapts the guise of the helpless, incompetent younger child, a carefully played role that conceals a cunning and sadistic intelligence. This mask causes others, especially Ava and Battler, to underestimate her. It is a strategic weapon, allowing her to maneuver unnoticed beneath the family's radar, masking a dangerous hidden agenda. Mask of helplessness. Her siblings view her as useless and powerless, a perception that Rosa internalizes, deepening her anger and feelings of abandonment. This mask reflects the tragic acceptance of low status within the family hierarchy, fueling a simmering resentment and reinforcing the cycle of emotional pain. Together, these masks splinter Rosa's identity, concealing the terrifying core of her mask of madness. This central mask hides the abyss of trauma, despair, and fractured humanity that defines her existence. It is a storm beneath every other face she wears, the dark heart of a soul unraveling beneath the weight of betrayal and loss. At the center of Rosa's shattered identity lies the mask of madness, not simply a facade, but the terrifying core of her fractured psyche. It is here that trauma, rage, calculation, and sadism fuse into a volatile storm that threatens to consume what remains of her identity. Rosa's madness is born from the depths of childhood neglect and childhood abuse, wounds that never healed but fester beneath layers of repression and denial. Fear of helplessness seated in those early years have warped her mind, fracturing her sense of self and reality. This trauma is not merely background. It is the root twist that every aspect of her personality, her relationships, her desperate attempts to survive in a world that abandoned her. Her madness transcends mere emotional stability. It's a rebellion against identity, family, and fate. As the episodes progress, the audience sees that Rosa rejects the roles imposed on her, the expectations of the Ushiromiya family, and the threads binding her life. The roles she once used as a shield for her guilt and shame come to define her so directly that she can no longer get away from them. This change is not passive, but active, philosophical rejection of self, with little to replace it beyond others' interpretations of her. This becomes an embrace of chaos and destruction. It is madness as a form of existential defiance. This definitive madness isolates Rosa further, severing her from the possibility of healing or genuine connections. It deepens the darkness that clouds her decisions, driving her toward tragic, often destructive choices. The mask of madness is both prisoner and executioner, a relentless force that defines Rosa's existence and seals her fate. To fully understand Rosa, we must venture beyond her outward mask and explore the tangled labyrinths of her psyche. A mind fractured and reshaped by trauma, social pressure, and survival instincts. Rosa has a fragmented identity. Her sense of self is shattered into countless fractured pieces, each representing a mask she wears to navigate a hostile world. This fragmentation is a direct consequence of prolonged trauma and relentless social expectations. Childhood neglect, combined with the suffocating weight of family duty, forced Rosa to splinter her identity into multiple selves, each designed to handle specific threats, vulnerabilities, or relationships. The resulting patchwork personality is less a cohesive individual and more of a fragile mosaic, constantly at risk of cracking under pressure. Her behavior and relationships are governed by a powerful unconscious defense. Denial allows her to reject painful truths, preserving a fragile mental stability at the cost of authenticity. Projection directs her inner turmoil outward, blaming others to avoid confronting her own failings and guilt. Disassociation offers a brief escape from unbearable emotional pain, fragmenting her sense of presence and continuity. Repression buries traumatic memories and emotions deep beneath the surface. Together, these mechanisms protect Rosa's fragile core but distort her interactions, fostering mistrust and misunderstanding with those around her. Rosa is trapped in an endless battle between her self image, the identity she wishes everyone to employ. This cognitive dissonance creates intense internal conflict, destabilizing her mind even further. She clings to the illusions of control and normalcy, but each is contradicted by evidence of failure, abandonment, and despair. This dissonance feeds her instability, amplifying her emotional volatility and eroding her rational decision making. Her difficulty regulating emotions manifests in unpredictable extreme responses to stress or conflict. Moments of seething rage can spiral into an overwhelming despair or numb detachment without warning. These emotional storms leave her exhausted and vulnerable, yet unable to break free from their cycle. This dysregulation fuels her destructive patterns, alienating those around her and deepening her sense of isolation. Her social rejection by her family intensifies her psychological decline. She sinks deeper into paranoia, suspicion, and self destructive cycles. The very people who could offer healing instead reinforce her loneliness, trapping her in a never threatening spiral of despair. This isolation magnifies every fracture of her psyche, leaving her more vulnerable to the darkness within. To look at Rosa through a neurodivergent lens is to not accuse her, nor to soften the harm she causes. It is to consider a deeper question. What happens when a mind shaped by difference is left to fend for itself in a world built on repression, control, and cruelty? Neurodivergence refers to cognitive differences, autism, ADHD, BPD, and complex PTSD that diverge from what society deems typical. It is not a synonym for instability, nor is it a narrative shortcut to explain monstrosity. It is a framework, one that helps us understand how a person might experience the world more intensely, mask compulsively, or spiral when emotional regulation fails. Rosa's behavior, her volatility, emotional masking, black and white thinking, and explosive rage can echo neurodivergent patterns. Her many masks may not be a conscious manipulation. Her cruelty may stem not only from trauma, but from a nervous system in constant conflict. Trapped between deep feeling and the ability to process it safely, this is not something the audience notices at first glance. It requires digging beneath her rage, her detachment, her brutality, to sit with the uncontrollable truth that what we call madness might be understood difference. Rosa's story resonates with the unseen, the misread, the overcorrected, those who hurt in ways to make others turn away. Many neurodivergent individuals in real life report similar battles, forced masking in professional and familial settings, punished for not doing wrong but for being too much. Actress and author Hannah Gapsey, for example, has spoken candidly about the pain of masking autism for decades, how the pressure to perform normal led to emotional burnout and alienation. Her story, like Rosa, reveals that unrecognized differences can spiral into self destruction when met with cruelty instead of care. To say Rosa's neurodivergent isn't the point. What matters is her portrayal echoes the experiences of many who are punished not for malice, but for misalignment. She forces us to ask, how do we judge minds that fracture under pressure? And what does it say about us when we only see monsters, never the mechanisms that made them? Perhaps the deepest horror of Rosa's story is not what she does, but how easy the world lets her become what she is. A mind abandoned, punished for feeling too much, and never taught how to survive it. A child never soothed, a mother never saved, a woman carved into mask until she can no longer see the soul beneath. And maybe the final tragedy is when the mask becomes the only face anyone remembers. Rosa Ushiromiya's many masks are more than a mere facade. They are fractured fragments of a shattered soul, painful necessities born from trauma, and a desperate will to survive. Each mask conceals a piece of her torment, a layer of her fractured identity struggle to hold together against the storm within. Andre Bertha once said, "We all wear masks, and the time comes we cannot remove them without removing some of our own skin." Rosa's life embodies this brutal truth. Her masks are not just disguises, but extensions of her being, entwined with the very core of her pain and survival. To fully understand Rosa, confront the tragic truth that trauma forces upon us. The mask we wear often becomes inseparable from our true face. In her story lies a haunting reflection of fractured humanity, one that challenges us to see beyond appearances and recognize the shadows beneath. As we peel back each mask, we must ask ourselves, not only what mask do we hide, but what parts of ourselves we fear to find when the mask finally slips away. When survival demands 1,000 masks, how do we ever know which face was ours to begin with?